The grand courtroom of Newberry County was packed, the air heavy with anticipation. At the center of the storm stood Karoline Leavitt, a young woman with piercing blue eyes and unwavering conviction. She had been summoned to defend her faith in a trial that had captured the nation's attention. The media swarmed outside, eager to broadcast every word of what was being called the trial of faith. Judge Samuel Reinhart, a man known for his sharp tongue and deep skepticism of religion, sat at the bench, towering over the court like an immovable statue. He had presided over countless cases, but this one was different. It was not a murder trial, nor a corporate scandal. It was an assault on belief itself. The courtroom was lined with legal scholars, journalists, and ordinary citizens eager to witness what many called a defining moment in the battle between faith and reason. "Ms. Leavitt," the judge sneered, adjusting his spectacles, "you claim that your faith has performed miracles, that it has tangible power. But where is your evidence? Where is your proof beyond a shadow of a doubt?" Karoline stood tall, her hands steady as she clutched a worn Bible to her chest. "Your Honor, some things cannot be measured by mere human standards. Some truths transcend science and logic." A scoff rippled through the courtroom, the judge shaking his head. "Science and logic have built civilizations, Ms. Leavitt. Your faith, however, has brought about wars, deception, and control. If you wish to make a case for its power, you must do so with facts, not fables." Karoline took a slow, deep breath. "Then let me share a story, a real one." The courtroom hushed as she recounted an event that had taken place just a year prior. A devastating storm had ravaged her hometown, floods sweeping away homes and families. The town's emergency response teams had failed to reach the trapped survivors, their efforts thwarted by collapsing bridges and impassable roads. The people had no choice but to pray. "My younger brother, Joshua, was among the stranded," she continued, her voice unwavering. "For 2 days, he clung to the rafters of our collapsing house. He had no food, no water, just his faith. And then, when hope was all but lost, the waters receded faster than any meteorologist predicted. Scientists called it an anomaly. We called it an answered prayer." The courtroom remained silent, many hanging onto her every word. Even some of the courtroom reporters who had entered with skepticism were now scribbling furiously, captivated by her testimony. Judge Reinhart arched a skeptical brow. "Coincidences happen, Ms. Leavitt." "Do they?" She stepped forward. "Then explain this." From her purse, she produced a collection of sworn testimonies, affidavits from doctors, meteorologists, and even rescue workers who had witnessed what they could only describe as divine intervention. The signatures, the official stamps, everything was legitimate. The judge took the papers, his fingers slightly trembling as he skimmed through the pages. A deep furrow appeared between his brows. This is extensive." "Yes, Your Honor," Karoline said. "And if faith is nothing more than a lie, then how do you explain a man declared clinically dead for 20 minutes who suddenly revived with no medical explanation? How do you explain thousands of people, across generations, experiencing visions, healings, and unexplainable occurrences?" She turned her gaze towards the audience. "How many of you have witnessed a miracle?" she asked. One by one, hands began to rise. First a few, then a dozen, then nearly the entire courtroom. Even a member of the prosecution subtly nodded, though he kept his head lowered to avoid attention. The judge shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His years of legal training had taught him to trust only in hard evidence, yet here he was, faced with a mountain of sworn testimonies, a courtroom full of believers, and the undeniable sincerity in Karoline's voice. "Ms. Leavitt," he said slowly, "are you saying miracles defy the laws of nature?" "No, Your Honor," she said, smiling gently. "I'm saying they reveal a greater law, one beyond human comprehension." A murmur spread through the courtroom, some nodding, others whispering among themselves. Karoline continued, "Your Honor, the world is filled with mysteries science has yet to explain. We cannot see the wind, yet we feel its presence. We do not understand the full depths of the universe, yet we acknowledge its vastness. Faith is not the rejection of reason, It is the recognition that some things are beyond it. Judge Reinhart leaned back, rubbing his temple. He had always prided himself on being a man of reason, but the sheer weight of the evidence and the conviction in Karoline's voice shook him in a way he had never anticipated. Finally, he sighed. Ms. Leavitt, the court does not typically deal in matters of faith. And yet, he gestured toward the raised hands, the affidavits, and the expressions of belief radiating from the people in the room. It seems undeniable that something exists beyond our understanding. The courtroom erupted into murmurs, and then applause. Thunderous applause that echoed through the high ceilings and spilled into the hallways, where reporters rushed to broadcast the unexpected turn of events. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed as Karoline stepped down the grand steps. Reporters swarmed, eager to capture her reaction. But she merely looked up at the sky, smiled, and whispered, "Thank you." Somewhere behind her, Judge Reinhart remained seated at his bench, staring at the collection of documents before him. And for the first time in his long, skeptical career, he found himself whispering a quiet, uncertain prayer. In the days following the trial, Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, found herself bombarded with invitations to speak at universities, religious gatherings, and political conferences. Despite her demanding role in the administration, she turned down most of these engagements, choosing instead to return to her small hometown, where her faith had first taken root. Judge Samuel Reinhart, however, could not easily walk away from what had transpired in that courtroom. The testimonies and undeniable experiences of so many people lingered in his mind. He found himself poring over the affidavits long after the trial had ended. Trained to believe only in what could be proven beyond doubt, the sheer volume of evidence challenged his very foundation. One evening, he sat alone in his office, a single lamp illuminating the desk before him. He hesitated before pulling out his phone and searching for Karoline's contact information. His fingers hovered over the dial button, but he paused. What would he even say? That he, the great skeptic, was beginning to doubt his own doubts? Meanwhile, Karoline was visiting her brother Joshua, the very same brother who had been saved in the flood. They walked along the quiet dirt road leading to their family home, the stars twinkling above them. "You really shook them in that courtroom," Joshua said with a grin. "Never seen a judge look that confused before." Karoline laughed softly. "It wasn't about confusing him, Josh. It was about showing him something real." Joshua nodded, then his expression grew more serious. "Do you think he believed you?" Karoline sighed, kicking a small stone along the road. "I think I planted a seed. What happens next isn't up to me." Across town, Judge Reinhart finally gathered the courage to call. The phone rang twice before Karoline picked up. "Judge Reinhart." There was a long pause on the other end before his voice came through, quieter than she had ever heard it. "I need to talk to you." That single conversation led to many more. The once steadfast skeptic began asking questions about faith, miracles, and the possibility that he had been wrong all these years. Karoline answered with patience, never pushing, simply offering what she knew. Months later, Judge Reinhart made an unannounced visit to her town. Dressed in casual clothes rather than his usual robe, he seemed almost out of place, yet there was something different about him. He wasn't there as a judge, nor as a skeptic. He was there as a man searching for something bigger than himself. As he and Karoline walked through the town, she shared stories of lives changed and faith in action. As the sun set behind the rolling hills, Judge Samuel Reinhart, once a staunch opponent of faith, closed his eyes and whispered a quiet prayer of his own. For the first time in his life, he wasn't afraid to believe.